last week's fight. Where do we? Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones Jr. Now, where do we start? Do we talk about Mike Tyson and Roy Jones, or do we talk about? Fuck it. Let's talk about what really stole the show. Unfortunately, look, I'm not a fan of Jake Paul. I think he's a bit of a wanker, personally. Obviously, good on him for making money, getting in the ring. I'm sure, it would take balls for sure. I've never been in there, but it obviously takes balls to some degree. But Nate Robinson should not have been in there. And everyone who keeps saying it was a fair fight because they're both not boxers and blah blah blah, that does not mean it was a fair fucking fight. First and foremost, let's talk about the weight. I believe that Jake Paul weighed in at 189. It was a fight at 190 pounds. He weighed in at 189. Nate Robinson weighed in at 181, which means Nate Robinson did not cut weight, which means he walked in at 181. He didn't cut weight. He was fighting at 190 at 181, and so that was what he fought at. Jake Paul at 189, weighing in for a fight at 190, he cut weight for sure. He's a big dude. So was his brother. He easily walks. I reckon he easily walked into that fight at close to 200, north of 200 pounds. And when you're a fighter, when it comes to fight, you're a boxer especially. Not so much boxing as much as MMA, but it still counts when it comes to that weight, that big weight size, weight difference. So let's say he walked in at 205 pounds. It might have been only 200, whatever it was. I guarantee it was at least 200 pounds when he walked in there. He's a bigger dude. He's a pretty fucking big dude. And he fought a guy that weighed in at 181 and most likely walked in at 181. He would, being that far away from the fighting weight, you usually wouldn't have cut weight because that means you cut 9 extra pounds that you didn't need to, which obviously when you're cutting weight, you don't want to be cutting more weight than you need to. So he fought a guy that probably weighed 20 pounds less than him, which is very, very, it matters for sure. People say size doesn't matter when it comes to fighting. They are absolutely wrong. 110%. Nate Robinson, they say, oh, he's an athlete, blah, blah, blah. Yes, he's an athlete who is 36 years old on the tail end of his career. He's not even in the NBA anymore. I'm not sure what association he plays for now, but he's not even in the NBA. So he's on the tail end of his career. He's 36 years old. He's never boxed before in his life. Jake Paul is 23 years old and has been boxing for the last 3 years. He's had a professional fight already. I believe it was a professional fight. I don't think it was an exhibition. But either way, he's been boxing for 3 years and he's 23 years old. When you are 23 years old and you've spent 3 years boxing, you can pick it up pretty fucking easily. Not as easily as someone who's been, it's not an easy thing to pick up, but when you're 23 years old, you're young and you're athletic, you can pick it up. When you're 36 years old, even if you are an athlete, you're a professional athlete, you're not picking boxing up within 6 months or however amount of time they had to pick it up. It's way different than basketball, obviously. It's not just about being an athlete. You're not going to pick up the skills at 36 years old when you've never boxed. You're not going to pick up the skills to beat a guy who's been boxing for 3 years who also outweighs you by 20 pounds. Nate Robinson should not have been in there. I'm not dissing Jake Paul or trying to underestimate his or down talk his performance. I mean, he looks like a boxer when he's in there. But Nate Robinson, there was no need for that. He should not have been in there at all. Not a chance in hell. After the fight, Jake Paul called out Conor McGregor and Dylan Dennis. Now, first of all, he probably beats Dylan Dennis in a boxing match. He probably does. I'll put my money on Jake Paul. Jake Paul, he definitely has some skills. He can box for sure. He's not an elite level boxer, but he can box for sure. And Dylan Dennis is a great at jiu-jitsu and grappling, but he is not on a striking level to be able to box with someone like Jake Paul. Jake Paul he actually has technique. I think he would get fucking washed away by Jake Paul. The Conor McGregor fight, first of all, it's not going to happen. The heaviest Conor McGregor has ever weighed into a fight has been 169, I believe, for both the Nate Diaz fights and his fight against Cowboy Cerrone earlier this year. He is, and Jake Paul cut weight to get to 190. That fight will not happen. Then their distance is just too far apart. Conor McGregor's a 155 fighter. Jake Paul probably weighs over 200 pounds. They are not going to box. And if they did, Conor McGregor's going to wash him. Jake Paul has the skill to, the power and enough skill that he has a puncher's chance. But, man, it just does. There's a difference just from a guy, from being somebody who can box and being a professional fighter. Like, he landed punches on the greatest boxer to ever. Conor McGregor landed punches on the greatest boxer to probably ever live. That's my opinion. I think Floyd Mayweather, technically speaking, is the greatest boxer to ever live. And he landed punches on him. So how the fuck does Jake Paul think he's going to land punches on? He's going to beat Conor McGregor. Not going to happen. The fight won't happen. And even if it did, Conor McGregor's going to win. He's too good. But he could probably beat Dylan Dennis.